You know that feeling, right? You've just polished off a delicious meal, and you reach for that tall, ice-cold glass of water. Ah, it's just so refreshing. But what if that simple pleasure, that satisfying chill, is actually a big health mistake? For literally centuries, a debate has been simmering over this exact question. So today, we're going to settle it.
So here's the big question. Is that wonderful glass of ice water secretly messing with your digestion? Now, this isn't some new age health fad, you know? This is a real clash between ancient wisdom, traditions that have warned against this for thousands of years, and our modern scientific understanding of the human body. So what's the real story?
Okay, let's hear the case against cold water first. The prosecution, if you will, comes from some of the oldest medical traditions in the world. And for them, digestion is a hot topic. Quite literally. And what's so fascinating here is that you have two completely separate ancient traditions, Ayurveda from India and traditional Chinese medicine, that somehow arrived at the very same conclusion, just using different pictures. Ayurveda talks about a metabolic fire. TCM talks about a cooking pot. The core idea, though, it's exactly the same. Digestion needs warmth.
So in Ayurveda, this digestive fire is called Agni. And I want you to really picture this. Imagine you've got a good, strong campfire going, and you're about to cook on it. What would happen if you just dumped a bucket of ice water on it? Poof, the fire's out. Well, Ayurvedic practitioners believe that's pretty much what happens inside your stomach. A weak Agni can't break down food properly, and this leads to a buildup of gunk they call ama, basically metabolic toxins that they see as the root cause of all sorts of health problems.
And then you have traditional Chinese medicine. They use that cooking pot analogy. Your stomach needs this warm, active energy, what they call spleen yang, to cook your food and transform it into qi, which is your life force energy. In their system, cold is an extreme yin force. It's cooling, it's passive, and they believe it basically shocks your system, weakens that warming energy, and leads to a state called dampness. And that feels exactly like it sounds. You feel bloated, tired, just sluggish.
All right, so we've heard one side of the story. Now let's bring in the defense, modern biomedical science. What does it say is actually going on inside your stomach when that cold water hits?
Okay, so here's where science starts its argument. Our bodies are incredible machines, right? They are powerful thermoregulators. They work around the clock to keep our internal core temperature locked in at about 37 degrees Celsius or 98.6 Fahrenheit. This system is designed to handle bumps in the road.
So just how big of a bump is a glass of ice water? Does it flash freeze your organs? Well, not even close. Studies show that when you drink something really cold, say around 4 degrees Celsius, your stomach's temperature only drops about 21 degrees at its absolute lowest. It's a dip for sure, but it's not a deep freeze.
Okay, so it gets a little cooler, but for how long? Well, it turns out our stomachs are ridiculously efficient at warming things up. It only takes about 20 to 30 minutes for it to get right back to its normal, happy core temperature. This tells us that any effect from the cold is probably really short-lived.
And all of this leads to what is basically the scientific consensus, which is this. For most healthy adults, our body's own internal thermostat is more than strong enough to handle a cold drink. That temporary temperature change, it's considered pretty insignificant.
Okay, let's tackle one of the biggest myths head-on. This is the idea that drinking cold water, especially after a meal, makes you gain weight because it supposedly solidifies the fats you just ate.
Yeah, this one's a total myth. I mean, think about it. Weight gain is all about calories, and water, hot, cold, whatever, has exactly zero. In fact, your body actually has to use up a tiny bit of energy, a few calories, just to warm that cold water back up to body temperature. So if anything, it's a net zero gain.
But wait, the story isn't quite that simple. While cold water won't make you pack on the pounds, science has found something else, a much more subtle and frankly fascinating effect. Could the temperature of your water actually change how much you want to eat?
Check this out. A 2018 study found something pretty wild. As you can see here, people who drank very cold water right before a meal ended up eating 19% fewer calories than people who drank body temperature water. So what's going on? The thinking is that the cold water might slow down the contractions of the stomach, which could make you feel fuller faster.
Okay, so it sounds like for most of us, cold water is totally fine, right? Maybe even a little helpful for managing appetite. But this is where things get interesting, because modern science has actually found specific cases where those ancient warnings to stay away from cold drinks were totally spot on.
First up, there's a condition called achalasia.
Now, this is a rare disorder that messes with the esophagus, and it makes it really hard for food and liquids to get down into the stomach. For people with this condition, cold water isn't just a minor annoyance, it can be a major trigger for intense pain and spasms. Here, the medical advice is crystal clear: avoid cold liquids.
Now let's talk about something way more common: irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS. For a lot of people with an already touchy digestive system, that jolt of cold water can act like a direct irritant. It can set off this exaggerated nerve response that leads straight to pain, bloating, and just general discomfort.
And there's one more big one to consider, especially for older folks, and it has to do with blood pressure. Drinking cold water can trigger something called a pressor response, which is basically a temporary spike in your blood pressure. Now, in younger, healthy people, it's no big deal, but this effect is much stronger in older adults. Their top number, the systolic pressure, can jump by more than 10 points and stay up for as long as 20 minutes. So if you're managing hypertension, that's definitely something to know.
All right, we've heard from the ancients, we've heard from the scientists, we've busted some myths and looked at the very real exceptions. So, what's the final verdict here?
So let's just break it down one last time. That concern about digestion, science is, yeah, it slows things down for a minute, but for most people, the body handles it just fine. Weight gain? Complete myth. In fact, cold water might even help you eat a little less. But for those specific conditions, achalasia, IBS, or for older folks with blood pressure concerns, the ancient advice really holds true. In those cases, avoiding cold is definitely the smart move.
So here's the bottom line, the big takeaway. For the vast majority of healthy people, arguing about the temperature of your water is kind of missing the point. The single most important thing, the thing that really moves the needle for your health, is simply staying hydrated. Whether you like your water warm, cool, or cold is mostly just about what you prefer.
And that really brings us to the most important question of all. It's not about warm versus cold. The real question you should be asking is, what is my body telling me? Paying attention to that unique answer, listening to your own system, well, that's the real key to well-being.